and I'm the Associate Principal Trombonist with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, and I'm here on behalf of the International Conference of Symphony and Opera Musicians, otherwise known as ICSOM, and we are continuing with our series, Musician Profiles Celebrating Racial Diversity. And I'm joined today by JáTtik Clark, who is the Principal Tubist of the Oregon Symphony Orchestra. Hello, JáTtik.
Hello, good afternoon.
So glad we could be able to do this today. Do you want to give us an introductory background about yourself?
Oh, sure. I see based on the questions here, I guess just a little bit of a little bit of biographical background. I've been with the Oregon Symphony for this is my 25th season, in fact. So we hit an anniversary. I guess we can call that a silver anniversary milestone. Recently.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And been here in the Oregon Symphony. I grew up in South Carolina, Hartsville, South Carolina, to be a bit more exact, was my hometown. Pretty small place, very easy to miss. But I did my schooling at University of South Carolina in Columbia for my undergrad. I did my graduate degree at the Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, CCM. And then from there, I came straight to Oregon to start the job here at the Oregon Symphony. So I was very fortunate, being able to go right from school to work. So
that's great. Well, let's get right down to the questions. When was the first time you ever heard an orchestra, live or recorded?
Okay, I'll warn you up front. This is a bit of a long story, but a good one, and I hope it's worthwhile to everybody. But pretty early on, as a young child, just looking for role models and such things to latch on to. For me, one of the things that was, that caught my eye was, The Cosby Show. Bill Cosby. Now, obviously, things came out later on that we didn't know, but at the time, it was great to see him, on TV as a successful Black actor, representing, a full family with the husband and wife, both gainfully employed and, wonderful, well-adjusted children, just, living the American dream. But there was one particular season where they sort of did an island calypso. It was always the Cosby theme, but with different takes on it, jazz or New Orleans style. This was an orchestral style, and I remember they had the island shirts on, and it's almost like ballet. And I remember hearing an orchestra in the background and was just thinking, and at this point I was in band and just thinking, wow, that'd be really cool to play. Well, many years later, I joined the Oregon Symphony. At the time, James DePriest was the music director. My first boss. He hired me. Took a chance on an unknown kid. So thank you, Jimmy. Anyway, we were having dinner, and he asked me a similar question about, how did you get started in music? And I remember mentioning The Cosby Show and this particular season with the island theme, and he just gets this big smile on his face. And apparently, he composed the music for that particular season. He and Bill were good friends. They went way back. And he had also mentioned that the Oregon Symphony had recorded that particular season's theme music. So, I mean, pretty amazing. So, into that, my response to Jimmy was, well, of course, you're the reason I'm here. But when I really think about it, you're the reason that I'm here, or at least one of the big ones.
Wow.
As they say, you can't write this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you remember? So this was during a ballet scene in on the episode you were watching, or?
It was their opening sequence of the show. I think that, yeah.
You're talking about like the main title.
Yes.
Theme.
Yes.
Wow. That's what a small world.
Yeah, I can't remember which season it was, but I think those that are old enough can remember that particular one. They're all kind of jumping around and in the island shirts, and so it's sort of a ballet orchestral background. But that was the first time that, at least, I can remember specifically hearing an orchestra and being sort of captivated by the music.
It's undeniable the other artists who contributed to that show. I mean, obviously, what became of Bill Cosby, that is something that needs to be reckoned with. But the other artists, and including your then future conductor who hired
Yes.
you, wow, that's an incredible story. Um, let's see. Oh, and this kind of pivots. When did you begin playing music? How old were you?
Okay. Okay. I think I was about 12 years old, just trying to remember because I have a September birthday, which is kind of late, but in terms of making the each class. But so for me, it was seventh grade. I just knew that I wanted to be in band. No particular reason. No one put me up to it. No one had talked it up for me. When I started junior high, it was kind of like I want to be in the band. It was just something innate that said this could be really cool. And of course, like most of the kids, I wanted to play saxophone because that was the popular instrument. I can remember maybe an earlier Cosby Show season where sax was prominently displayed, and I remember hearing that. Uh, I remember the band director asking everybody how many people were interested in this instrument. A couple of hands would go up. How many people want to play saxophone? About half the class, because that was like the real cool, popular instrument. Kenny G was sort of in his prime right around those times. Maybe mid '80s is what we're talking about. Yeah, we're old, or at least some of us are.
Oh no, I wasn't laughing at your age. I wasn't expecting to hear about Kenny G in this interview. That's all.
Oh yeah, we're going there. But 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 we all met with the band director one person at a time. We all had these appointments, and she would have us play several instrument mouthpieces, reeds, and such. Miss Penny Rogers, and so it was my turn. I went in, played all the different mouthpieces, reeds, percussion, and we get to the tuba mouthpiece. Of course, I pick it up and buzz on it. She just gets a look on her face like, yeah, that could be a good fit. Now I'm just thinking, well, I wasn't at my full size, but I was a fairly big kid for seventh grade. And I thought, well, for one thing, I know I'm probably one of the few people that could actually hold one of these instruments. So it felt kind of like a setup. But I still put down saxophone as my first choice, but I put tuba as my second choice and trombone as my third choice. And I guess there's a little known maxim, or maybe it's a well known maxim for band directors. If you have any kid that shows any interest in tuba, you put them on tuba. So tuba was the choice, and I thought, okay, I'll give this a chance.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And so I assume this was a concert band program.
Yes. Yeah. Wind Symphony, Wind Ensemble, seventh grade. Yeah.
Excellent.
But I just remember, I also remember starting on like it was like an old King 2341 with a detachable bell. These were not small instruments. These days you've got like the small 3/4 tubas or euphonium, but I started on a pretty much a full size 4-valve instrument. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So for people who are watching this who don't know brass instruments as much,
sure.
Compared to what you play in the orchestra now, how did that tuba compare in dimensions?
The instrument the instrument I use now is a 6/4 instrument, Eastman ECB 836 tuba. I'm an Eastman artist, gotta get that in, I suppose. But this instrument was similar in size, not quite the width of sound. The bell's a bit narrower in the throat and such, but not too far away in terms of size, and maybe in terms of weight. The King might have actually been a bit heavier, but
wow.
But yeah, pretty much always been on 4/4, 5/4, 6/4 size tubas.
So you were really thrown into the deep end then.
Yes, literally and figuratively. Yes, I see what you did there.
Yes. Guilty. Well, great. And in your musical upbringing, was there a particular aha moment where you knew that you were inspired to go into a career in music?
Well, okay. Another story coming. I love details. You can probably
and we
already
love
tell.
stories.
So hopefully people are still with us. They haven't tuned off. But when I started as far as my college at the University of South Carolina, Gamecocks. I started as a music education major. Now with the caveat that I had zero interest in being a band director. No offense to any of the wonderful band directors that we have, including the ones that were in my particular orbit. They were all great teachers and really meaningful in terms of my musical upbringing. But like many people, I was doing the education as a backup, to be able to do something if the performance didn't work out. But I certainly, although I wasn't sure at the time in terms of what type of performance, but I knew that I really enjoyed playing the tuba. I was starting to see success, gigging, traveling a bit, doing well at Allstate and such. And I wanted to keep that going. But it was my sophomore year. I remember talking with the trombone professor at the time, Bill Zafis, who was also, as most of us have so many people behind us and holding us up in terms of where we end up. So many people, helping us reach that next rung. And he was one of those people. I remembered approaching him and asking him about orchestral recordings and what I should buy in terms of composers, orchestras, and of course, Bill was very helpful, and he mentioned, the Strauss and the Mahler and the Bruckner and Prokofiev and Chicago Symphony, New York Philharmonic, and such. Remember going to Best Buy back when Best Buy had a pretty decent CD classical section, and I bought several discs. One of which included it was a live performance of Chicago Symphony, Schulte, Bruckner 8, and I think they were in Leningrad, USSR at the time. And I remember listening to that straight, the Bruckner 8th Symphony, and then immediately listening to it again. So about 2.5 hours later, for me, that was like the epiphany. It's like, I want to be an orchestral tubist. This is what I want to do. And
Wow.
And again, thankfully, here we are.
Did you ever have a chance to tell the people on that recording, at least the low brass members on that recording, that
I
how
believe
crucial
that
that was?
Yeah, I believe I mentioned it at least to Gene Picorni, principal tubist in CSO, currently, and at the time, I think that would have been one of his earlier recordings with the group. I believe he joined the orchestra in 1988, and I want to say that that recording was maybe very late 80s, early 90s. So would have been one of his first ones. And if I did mention something, Gene, hopefully you see it now and just know that, again, thank you.
This will be a good quiz to see if Gene's watching this.
Yes. All right.
Hi, Gene.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's so awesome. So now moving along in your career, is there a particular concert that stands out, the concert that you played that stands out as something you'll always remember?
If I may, could I maybe give two answers?
You can give
that?
as many you can give as many answers as you can give 10
Careful.
answers for all I care.
Well, I would say, as far as the Oregon Symphony, one concert series that will always stand out will be the one that we took to Carnegie Hall, which was at least up until this point, our only Carnegie Hall appearance. We were part of this music festival, Springtime for Music. I can't remember the exact title. I think that was pretty close.
I think it was Spring Forward.
Spring Forward. Yeah. Okay. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we can look it up. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they did it for maybe 2 or 3 years. And yeah, I think the idea was to bring orchestras through that normally wouldn't have a regular Carnegie Hall series or wouldn't, visit with, a sense of regularity. So we had this opportunity to go out and play. This was with Carlos Calmar, who was our music director at the time. The program was pretty wild. If I remember this correctly, it was The Unanswered Question, immediate segue into The Wound Dresser, John Adams, immediate segue into Symphonia de Requiem, I think that's Britain, intermission, and then Vaughan Williams' Fourth Symphony.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I think the idea behind that music festival series was, if you didn't have to worry about ticket sales, what would you program? Just kind of go wild with it. And Carlos did. Great, incredible program, difficult program, but the interesting thing was, we all, I think for some of us, many of us, it was our first time ever playing in that hall. And although I hear that it's not as good as maybe it once was with recent renovations, it was a pretty amazing space to play in. Uh,
Mhm.
we all immediately just, wow, it's live and vibrant, and yet there's a certain distillation and clarity. You can still hear everything, even in like higher dynamics with the brass and such. Everything else, strings and winds are still coming through, and I just found that remarkable. And everybody brought it that evening. We all just, I think, swung for the fences and made contact, and it was just, everything was firing on all cylinders. It really stood out. I mean, we recorded that program, but I kind of wish we would have had a live recording of that particular Carnegie performance, because everybody brought it. And I think, maybe some music critics are still talking about that performance. We said, certainly that was probably my Oregon Symphony standout performance.
Mm.
So on to answer two. Recently, and we were talking before starting the interview process. You had mentioned Weston as being your first interview. Weston and I kind of go way back with Sphinx Symphony. I think it was the first time we met. But more recently, we both partook playing in a low brass section with an all African American orchestra for a Juneteenth celebration at the Hollywood Bowl.
Mm.
That was probably a couple summers ago. CNN broadcasted a sold out performance. I believe it was, Shaka Khan opened the night. And then we had also like the Roots, Earth, Wind and Fire, Neo, Belle Biv DeVoe,
Mhm.
Mickey Gayden, several just great, artists, with the orchestra in the background, and just a couple of orchestra features, but everything else with those groups I mentioned and others fronting the band. It's a Hollywood Bowl, probably what, 20,000 full capacity, maxed out. Uh, Another, certainly a highlight reel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And this Sphinx Symphony was something we were going to talk about anyway, but this would be a
Right.
great time for me to ask.
Sure.
You've been very involved lately. Would you like to speak to all the ways you've been involved with the Sphinx organization?
For me, primarily, it's been through the Sphinx Symphony. I haven't. There's a number of you can imagine. There's a number of personnel on each instrument that will come in depending on availability and such. I've done it a handful of times. Most recently this year, this past late January, I went out and played with them in Detroit Symphony Hall. Usually, that's what'll have the Sphinx competition, which is typically a string concerto competition for African American and Latino ethnicities. Um, and so they'll have an orchestra made up of the same ethnicities, playing accompaniment for the finalists in Detroit Symphony Hall. And so that has been my normal role with them typically. Although since its inception, they've branched out quite a bit. More recently, they've created and now have sort of an orchestral mock audition competition for all the orchestral instruments. And I have been a past judge, as has Weston has been a past judge of, obviously tuba for me, trombone for him.
Right. And I'm
Brad.
sorry to interrupt you. For those listening, Weston is Weston Sprott, who, if you watch the June interview, is the person that you watch. So just
Yes.
wanted to
Thank,
clear that up for
thank you for
people.
tying that together.
Yeah,
No
yeah, yeah.
problem. Yeah.
Please continue.
Oh no, but I've been a past judge for that particular competition. For the orchestral, like the mock audition, and I'm happy to say that I think this past year's audition, at least in the brass area, was in the brass and percussion area, was won by a tubist.
The committee has good taste,
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's great. So our final question for you today is, if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I think most people would always say, practice more, or or at least maybe practice differently. Uh, Boy, I would have liked to have maybe thought about this one a little bit more, because there's just so much you can say. I can't help but think of Back to the Future Part Two with the sports almanac and all the havoc that caused by with Biff Tannen. But anyway, yeah, I guess the stock answer would be practice more, work harder, but at the same time, probably I would have just mainly encouraged myself to just keep doing what I was doing. And I would say that I always had a faith. I don't know where it came from, but it seemed like I always had a faith that things would work out if I just kept doing what I was doing, which was keeping the nose clean, just keep practicing, keep working on your crafts, and no matter what you may think of your chances and such, just keep going up to bat and swinging. Because I guess the nice thing about our business is you only have to win once, maybe twice, and then you're in a pretty good position. And it can seem like it's a daunting task, and I am very happy that I don't have to audition nowadays. I can take auditions, but thankfully, as that talent level has gone higher and higher and higher and higher, I don't envy the musicians that are out there now, but I would tell them as well, just keep at it and just keep refining your craft and just keep raising the bar. And if it means that much to you, and if you have the true love for music that I think we do, you will be rewarded in time.
That's beautiful. And do you find yourself reminding yourself of that nowadays with, I don't know, any projects you have coming up? Or
well, I'm always thankful for having our job. It just, even the most prepared people, which typically get the auditions, you still have to have the luck at the very least that what you're selling is what they want to buy. Because we've all been in auditions where no one's hired because I guess they're looking for something else. I mean, you could be the best apple that day, but if they want an orange, you're probably not going to get the gig. And it's not to say that you played badly, but it's just they're looking for something in of a different vein.
Right. Well, JáTtik, thank you so much for spending your last half hour chatting with us, and thank you to all of you who are watching. This has been an interview, a part of the monthly series of ICSOM's musician profiles celebrating racial diversity. Before we go, JáTtik, please include anything you'd like to, add onto this or clarify anything that we've been talking about, or the floor is yours.
I probably have said more than enough, but again, just I'm always thankful for the opportunity. I'm always thankful for the opportunity to just for the young people. We were all young once, and to see, I think it's important to see people like yourself doing what you're doing, and just as a reminder that it is possible. So for people like I'll mention James Jenkins, who I got to work with as a fairly young student at Eastern Music Festival. It was around, I think, 1997, that summer. It was, we had a great 6 weeks of lessons, and just, again, seeing someone like myself, doing what I'm doing, just made it seem all the more possible. Not to steal a bit of Richard White's, I am possible. I think I immediately think of that, just seeing, someone like myself, and maybe there's a young musician out there who will see this and just know that, I am possible. You are possible. Keep at it, and just keep working, and just keep refining your craft, and never stop learning.
For those who are watching, James Jenkins and Richard White, do you want to tell us who they are and
sure,
what they're up to? And
yes, James Jenkins is, as far as I understand, he's still the principal tubist in the Jacksonville Symphony in Florida. At the time, he was the tuba instructor and faculty at the Eastern Summer Music Festival, which is what I referenced. That was my first introduction to him. Richard, I met at a couple of auditions. I think it was Rochester Philharmonic, maybe some others. But I saw Richard most recently at the last, end of January this year at Spinks. He was one of the other things that Spinks does is something called the Spinks Connect, where they have people come in and do lectures, talks, panels, and Richard was part of one of those panels. And I think he might have also been adjudicating the tuba portion of that mock orchestral competition that I mentioned. but he and I kind of go way back, just mainly seeing each other at auditions. But again, just Richard also is a principal tubist in the New Mexico Philharmonic, I believe, and so he's kind of doing his thing down there. But
right,
guys, yeah. I was gonna say, guys,
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Thanks for doing what you do and being who you are, being excellent, and just providing a great example for musicians like myself, so that hopefully I can pay it forward, for the next generation.
I just wanted to make a quick plug for Richard's book, I'm Possible, since
Yes.
you mentioned it.
Yes.
But it was published, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that?
That sounds about right. Yes.
But it is a just very raw story, literally.
RAW.
RAW about his whole life up to the present, and he's so vulnerable and honest and optimistic. So I didn't mean to steal the spotlight. I just wanted anybody watching this should go get that book.
Yes.
So whether or not you're a low brass player.
Yes. Highly recommended. Absolutely.
Anything else today?
Oh, I think that's good. I think we did a good bit.
I think so too.
Good. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, JáTtik.
You're very welcome.